Hey everyone and welcome. The rapid failing of our defensive capability laid bare by one squaddy over at top brass and Defence Secretary Ben Wallace. And I know who I believe. Let's read this discriminatory decline of military recruitment, shall we? In their own words. They got woke, soon to be broke, everyone.
The core is rotten, and I can behold the tide.
The head of the Royal Air Force signalled he was ready to bend his service out of shape and test the limit of the law to improve diversity. Yes, you heard that right. According to an informed source and the leaked transcript of an internal meeting. Fancy way of saying they're going to discriminate more. Air Chief Marshal Sir Mike Wigson has always maintained that necessary and well-intentioned efforts under his leadership to increase the ratio of ethnic minority and female recruits had no impact on the RAF's operational effectiveness and that standards were never compromised. It had to. There's no way it couldn't, is there, everyone? Proven by his own words later on. And here we have another source, they say, a serving RAF airman, and he claimed the complete opposite, operationally speaking. He said, us on the shop floor, so to speak, are struggling. We haven't got enough people to do the jobs and are desperate to have new recruits, new people, constantly. It appears the leaders have put political correctness in their own arbitrary target of increasing ethnic minorities and women recruitment ahead of actually getting people through the training pipeline to us at the coalface. Short, sweet and to the point, isn't it? Now the leader's justification for ruining recruitment is not so short, not so sweet and definitely not to the point. Firstly, let's remember this whole thing, the recruitment drive, forced a woman recruitment head out of the RAF. Remember that? The head of the RAF recruitment resigned in protest at what was alleged to be an illegal order, effectively to pause the placing of white male recruitments onto training courses in favour of women and ethnic minorities. So there you go, proof that it did impact on the RAF's operational effectiveness and that standards were compromised. The order was never implemented, but only because Group Captain Elizabeth Nichol refused to obey it and quit. Well done, a woman with principles. I am very, very impressed. Unfortunately, her resignation did nothing to recruitment, it seems, and even with failing numbers, they still push it through. Questions have also been raised about how the RAF, just over a year earlier, fast-tracked dozens of women and ethnic minority recruits onto training courses ahead of their white male counterparts. Now, what happened to meritocracy in the military, everyone? The ability to promote the best from in the ranks seems to be a thing of the past now, too, doesn't it? Now we have restrictions on the best for the illusion of inclusion. In June 2022, Air Chief of Air Personnel, Air Vice Marshal Byford, sent correspondence to her staff stating the CAS, the Chief of Air Staff, was prepared to bend the operational inflow requirements for the RAF out of shape for the next 3 years to meet diversity levels of ambition. The Air Chief's subsequent assurance to Parliament's Defence Select Committee that there was no compromise of entry standards, there was no impact on the standards of recruits from any background, and that there was no impact on the front line or on operational effectiveness. Air Chief Marshal Wigson is also quoted as saying, all white, all male lists of anything are unacceptable. Not if they turn out to be the best, surely. It's like they want the military to fail, so we have to fall back on others' military, isn't it? I don't know, like the EU, NATO, UN, all of the above. You see where I'm going with this? It's like they're trying to kill themselves from within, isn't it? Even though recruitment numbers are falling through the floor, they're still pushing and pushing and pushing. What's the definition of insanity? Trying the same thing over and over again and expecting different results? Yep. The Air Chief and the RAF's then senior non-commissioned officer, Warrant Officer Jake Alpert, who also participated, were asked whether the service planned to use positive action to ensure that there is a fairer representation of ethnic minorities. Positive action is a legal tool to help employers increase diversity by prioritising a minority candidate over, for example, their white male counterpart if they are equally qualified. Now, I think that would be even if they're not equally qualified. If they're as desperate as they're sounding to get a certain number of these people in, it sounds like they're going to have to, doesn't it? The two RAF leaders said they believed in positive action. Now, positive action, if you didn't know, is a legal tool to help you avoid discrimination laws. It's got nothing to do with increasing diversity. It's everything to do with the discrimination laws. And this is in favour of framing, i.e. your positive action has to be, by nature, negative for some. Discrimination is discrimination. We had laws to punish those that did. Not anymore. And if you can't get women and ethnic minorities in, maybe it's because, I know this is a far stretch of the imagination, they don't want to. You ever thought of that? Or do you assume, like all other intersectional hate mongers, that it must be racisms? We know the answer to that one, don't we, everyone? Numbers back up they're not wanting to too. The ratio of recruits stood at just 6% of all recruits in 2019, as an example, were women and ethnic minorities. And the Air Chief wanted it to reach 20% by 2030. He said, and this is where his words fall short, if changes around recruitment and other areas were not happening fast enough towards the end of his time as chief, then I'm going to take it as far as I can in the law, right up to the point of quotas, push positive action to the limit of the law. So he's going to try and evade the discrimination laws even more than they already are doing. And we've already seen that they're pushing people of different colours, ethnic backgrounds and women above men. Now, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be above men if their skills make them a more ideal candidate, but this doesn't sound like it, does it? If he's talking about it as positive action. This sounds like a destruction of meritocracy. We are already taking positive action, he said, and I don't accept honours and awards that aren't representative of our population. So in other words, even if you're in the military and you do something above and beyond, you know, the thing that would normally give you a, say, medal or some recognition, he won't actually give it you if you're of the wrong persuasion. Is that not what that says? Absolutely disgraceful, this man. And the politicians are just as deluded. This is a Tory, the Defence Secretary no less, being as much of an intersectional liar. Ben Wallace said that anyone found to have been at fault would be held to account. Now, well, obviously this is except himself, even though he's the man in charge. Obviously it don't mean him, or anyone else for that matter, judging by his words. Ultimately, what people need to understand, he said, is that no one was prevented from joining the RAF as a result of these conditions, except white males, obviously, but shh, that's all right. You're allowed to discriminate against them and call it something completely different. Fundamentally, what the Air Force was trying to do, he said, was make sure that there are more women being recruited into the Air Force. How are you going to do that? Now, he obviously come out with, there was no lowering of the standards. Well, if they don't want to join, or can't join, but you want more women, how would you actually do that without lowering the standards? If white males are better candidates and you stop them, that sure is lowering standards, is it not? Positive action by definition is lowering standards. He went on, there was no gerrymandering or fixing, but ultimately what this inquiry has been looking at is the process of the leadership and its relationship between those in charge at the time and whether they were listened to when they felt there was something going awry. Something going awry. Have you heard this? This is the Defence Secretary. So he's effectively saying it's not our fault, Governor. It happened around us. It was just coincidental when we were about. Nothing to do with us. I didn't have my hands involved in it. I didn't have my politics involved in it. It wasn't ideology at all. Nothing like that. It was just happening around us and no one listened. This inquiry that they're talking about, it'll be futile and a waste of more money we don't have. Nothing will come from it other than them continuing the same thing. And soon, the military will be futile and a waste of money as well. They're trying to get rid of our defences, in my honest opinion. It seems to be, if they're continuing to do the same thing that's destroying recruitment, we won't have a military whether we want one or not, will we? And with that, no defence. Just leave that with you. Let me know what you think though, everyone. I'd like to know your opinion. I know it's a bit of a long form with this one, but I thought the words needed to be repeated because it's absolutely disgraceful, isn't it? We need to be hiring the best of the best of the best of the best for our military, for all avenues, whether that be man, woman or any colour. The best of the best. Now we've got the woke of the woke. Stay sane, see you on the next one.